I will kill again. No, I would do it again. I've been nonstop since I was 13 years old.
Just shot and something, boom, boom, boom. You know, they weren't cut up, they weren't sliced up, no OJ jazz, you know. And he said, I did the most horrendous crime in the whole wide world.
What do serial killers say when they know the end is near? Their final interviews before execution reveal unsettling truths. Some try to justify their crimes, others remain cold and emotionless, while a few express regret too late.
If the survival of the white race was at stake, stuff like that, you know.
These last moments offer rare insight into the minds of people who committed unthinkable acts. It's not just what they say, but how they say it that leaves a lasting impact. In this video, we take a disturbing look at the final interviews of serial killers just before they faced execution.
Where people will come up and tell you they killed somebody or they're committing to a crime and stuff like this here.
Arthur Shawcross. Freed early, he hunted again unseen in plain sight until one chilling clue finally dragged him into daylight of terror and regret. Arthur Shawcross looked ordinary, a stocky, soft-spoken Vietnam veteran who baked pies for neighbors. Inside lurked a compulsive predator created, according to later psychiatrists, by traumatic brain injuries, wartime brutality, and childhood. He both suffered and inflicted. After he strangled and mutilated 10-year-old Jack Blake and 8-year-old Karen Hill in Watertown, New York, prosecutors bargained his confession down to manslaughter to spare jurors grisly photos. The plea let Shawcross see daylight again after only 14 years, partly because prison psychologists labeled him impulsive but manageable, and partly because overcrowding pressured parole boards in 1987. Paroled to Binghamton, then Rochester, officials never warned locals. Within months, began vanishing along the Genesee River Gorge. Shawcross selected remote riverbanks, removed body parts as grotesque trophies, and revisited corpses to relive power.
And why did you eat it?
I have no idea.
FBI profiler Robert Ressler advised Rochester police to watch bridges. An aerial observer finally spotted Shawcross's gray Chevy near a frozen creek on January 3, 1990. Interrogated for 35 hours, he spun tales of a cannibal Vietnamese sergeant and claimed the river told him to clean up trash. Jury members needed less than 3 hours to convict him of 11 murders. Judge Barrett growled, "You will never again breathe free air." While serving life at Sullivan Correctional Facility, Shawcross taunted criminology students, painted pastoral landscapes, and married pen pal Clara Neal in the visiting room. He died of cardiac arrest on November 10, 2008, after complaining of leg pain, ending a case that forever changed New York's parole laws and sparked the modern use of geographic profiling. Families of his victims later won civil suits against the state, arguing gross negligence, and demanded tighter psych evaluations before any violent offender release. It's time for the topic of the day. A teenage girl's haunting interview went viral just before her execution by hanging in a South Carolina prison. Convicted of 66 chilling serial killings, her calmness during the interview left many speechless. How could someone so young commit such darkness? What are your thoughts on this? Comment below. Aileen Wuornos. Discover the heartbreaking story of Aileen Wuornos, a woman shaped by trauma who became one of America's most infamous killers. Aileen Wuornos' life is a haunting blend of tragedy and terror, culminating in her execution on October 9, 2002, in Florida, by lethal injection for murdering 7 men. Born on February 29, 1956 in Michigan, Aileen faced abandonment and from the start. Her mother left her at 4, forcing her into the care of alcoholic grandparents. Tragically, she was by her grandfather and later became pregnant after being raped by a family friend. The baby was put up for adoption, and by age 15, Aileen was homeless, living in the woods and resorting to for survival. Between 14 and 22, Aileen attempted suicide 6 times, reflecting the deep emotional scars of her tumultuous upbringing.
Yeah.
You killed 7 men.
Yes, you
and
did.
I'm asking you, what got you to kill the 7 men?
And I'm telling you because the cops let me keep killing them, Nick. Don't you get it?
Her first known murder was of Richard Charles Mallory, a man she claimed tried to assault. Over the next year, she killed 6 more men, asserting self-defense each time. Aileen was arrested on January 9, 1991, and in 1992, she was sentenced to death. Just days before her execution, she chillingly stated, "I killed those men, robbed them as cold as ice, and I'd do it again. I have hate crawling through my system." In her final interview, she expressed feelings of betrayal, claiming the government had used her and then discarded her. Aileen Wuornos remains one of the most complex female killers in history, embodying the tragic consequences of societal failure. Her haunting final words, "You have to kill Aileen Wuornos because she'll kill again," leave a lingering question. Were they a threat, a warning, or a twisted form of closure? John Wayne Gacy. Uncover the chilling truth behind John Wayne Gacy, the clown who lured young boys to their deaths in plain sight. John Wayne Gacy is one of the most notorious serial killers in American history, having been convicted of murdering 33 young men and boys. His heinous crimes sent shockwaves across the nation, revealing the dark side of a man who appeared to be an upstanding citizen. Born on March 17, 1942 in Chicago, Gacy led a seemingly normal life. By day, he was a successful businessman and a community volunteer, earning the trust of families in his neighborhood. By night, he transformed into a monster, preying on vulnerable young boys. In 1967, Gacy's dark tendencies surfaced when he was convicted of a teenage boy, resulting in a 20-year prison sentence. Remarkably, he was released after just 18 months, allegedly due to political connections that facilitated his early release. This newfound freedom allowed him to escalate his horrific activities. Gacy lured boys to his home with promises of work, only to torture and murder them. Many of his victims were buried in the crawl space of his home, while others were discarded in a nearby river. To further mask his true nature, Gacy often disguised himself as Pogo, a children's party clown, charming families, and making it difficult for anyone to suspect his monstrous behavior. In 1978, Gacy's reign of terror came to an end when he was arrested following the disappearance of a local boy. Police uncovered the remains of 29 victims on his property. In March 1980, he was sentenced to death, spending 14 years on death row without showing remorse. Ultimately, on May 10, 1994, Gacy was executed by lethal injection, leaving behind a legacy of horror that continues to haunt the nation. Michael Bruce Ross. Explore the dark life of Michael Bruce Ross, a serial killer who believed death was not the ultimate punishment. Michael Bruce Ross's life is a haunting tale of trauma, violence, and chilling acceptance of his fate. Born on July 26, 1959, he was the eldest of 4 children in a home plagued by physical and the shadow of a family tragedy. His uncle, who allegedly molested him, later took his own life. Despite these harrowing experiences, Ross excelled academically, eventually attending Cornell University. However, beneath his scholarly achievements lay a deeply disturbed psyche. Ross developed a disturbing fascination with fear, stalking women in their dorms and deriving pleasure from their terror. This dark obsession culminated in his first attack during his sophomore year, marking the beginning of a horrific spree. Between 1981 and 1984, Ross murdered 8 women across Connecticut and New York, with most victims subjected to rape before their deaths. Although he was convicted of only 4 murders, he confessed to all 8, revealing the extent of his depravity. On July 6, 1987, Ross was sentenced to death, and he spent 18 long years on death row, grappling with the consequences of his actions. Finally, on May 13, 2005, he was executed by lethal injection at the age of 45. In a striking display of his complex mindset, Ross did not request a last meal and chose not to make a final statement. His last known words were haunting. "For some of us, death is not a punishment, living is the punishment." This chilling admission encapsulates the torment that defined his life and the darkness that ultimately consumed him. Edward Wayne Edwards. He was a killer con man and TV star, then murdered his own son for cash. This is Ed Edwards' twisted story. Edward Wayne Edwards wasn't just a murderer, he was a narcissist obsessed with fame. Born in 1933 in Ohio and raised in an abusive orphanage, he turned to crime early. By 1955, he had escaped jail and was robbing gas stations across the country without a mask. He wanted to be seen. By 1961, he was on the FBI's 10 Most Wanted list. But robbery wasn't the whole story. Edwards was later tied to multiple murders, some unsolved for decades. He once said, "The more trouble you get into, the bigger you are in their eyes." He lived by that. After escaping prison twice, he was caught again and surprisingly paroled just 5 years later. Then came the shocking twist. Edwards rebranded himself as a reformed man. He got married, wrote a book, gave motivational speeches, and even appeared on TV. But the truth eventually surfaced. In 1977, Edwards shot 21-year-old William Lavaco and Judith Straub execution style. In 1980, he strangled teens Tim Hack and Kelly Drew. And in his most disturbing act, he murdered his own foster son, Danny Boy Edwards, a U.S. Army soldier. The motive? A $250,000 life insurance policy. He shot Danny twice in the face and buried him in a shallow grave. Years later, his biological daughter, April Blasio, tipped off authorities, unlocking the truth. While awaiting trial, Edwards confessed to all his murders, finally admitting to killing Danny too. Sentenced to death, he chose lethal injection but died of natural causes in 2011 before the execution. His final words were eerie. "I am not proud of any of this, and I certainly wouldn't recommend anyone follow my path." Oscar Ray Bolin. Convicted killer denied guilt till the end. His brutal crimes, twisted past, and chilling final words revealed here. Oscar Ray Bolin's life was marked by violence and denial. Born in Indiana in 1962, Bolin's childhood was cruel. He was a and even led to school on a leash. By age 15, trouble with the law had already started. Later, he moved to Florida, married his girlfriend Cheryl, and worked at a carnival. But beneath the surface, his dark urges took control. On January 25, 1986, Natalie Blanche Holly disappeared while closing a fried chicken restaurant. Her body was found hours later, brutally stabbed.
The state's about to kill me, and they think they're getting justice, and I'm like, well, you're not getting justice.
That November, high school student Stephanie Collins vanished after work. A month later, her body was found stabbed with a crushed skull. On the same day, Terry Lynn Matthews disappeared. Her car was found running, and later her body was discovered with her throat slit. In 1987, Bolin was involved in the kidnapping and rape of a waitress in Ohio. His attempt to kill her failed when his gun jammed, and she survived to identify him. This led to a 22-year prison sentence. While behind bars, Bolin's ex-wife revealed his involvement in the Florida murders, leading to new charges and testimonies from family members. Sentenced to death for the murders of Collins and Matthews, Bolin spent 28 years on death row. Throughout, he maintained his innocence, claiming in his final interview, "Florida is basically killing an innocent man." Few believed his words. On January 7, 2016, Oscar Ray Bolin was executed by lethal injection, his dark legacy sealed, but his denials still haunting those who knew his crimes. Ted Bundy. Handsome, charming, and deadly Ted Bundy's twisted crimes and chilling confessions reveal the mind of a monster. Ted Bundy appeared to be the perfect man, handsome, articulate, and even educated in psychology. But beneath that charming exterior was a terrifying serial killer responsible for the deaths of at least 33 women. Born in Vermont in 1946, Bundy used his looks and charisma as weapons, preying on unsuspecting women. In 1975, Bundy kidnapped Lynette Dawn Culver by offering her a ride. Instead of help, he led her to a hotel room where he assaulted and drowned her. This was just one of many horrific murders he committed. Bundy's methods were cruel and calculated. He often pretended to be injured or in need of assistance to lure victims. Once alone, he would brutally beat, restrain, and kill them. His depravity ran so deep that he confessed to decapitating at least 12 victims and keeping their heads as trophies. Bundy's killing spree spanned multiple states.
Listen, I'm no social scientist, and I haven't done a survey. I don't pretend that I know what John Q. Citizen thinks about this.
He was first arrested in Utah in 1975, but his crimes soon came to light across the country. Notorious for escaping custody twice, he killed again in Florida before finally being captured for good in 1978. Sentenced to death 3 times, Bundy was executed in Florida on January 24, 1989. In his final interview, he reflected on his disturbing obsession with violent material that fueled his actions. "I was in some kind of horrible trance," he admitted. I take full responsibility for what I've done. Ted Bundy's story remains one of the darkest and most chilling in American criminal history. Joseph Paul Franklin, the racist killer's deadly hate exposed. White supremacist serial killer aimed to start a race war, his chilling crimes and final regrets revealed here. Joseph Paul Franklin was more than a cold-blooded murderer. He was a white supremacist terrorist driven by hate and violence. Born in 1950 in Alabama, Franklin's childhood was marked by abuse and poverty. As a teenager, he joined the Ku Klux Klan, becoming obsessed with sparking a race war in America. On June 8, 1980, Franklin waited on an overpass in Cincinnati with a rifle, targeting a racially mixed couple, hoping to ignite racial chaos. But his violent acts didn't stop there. Over the years, Franklin targeted African Americans, Latin Americans, and Jewish people across the country, often ambushing his victims near parks and bus stops without warning. One of his most brutal attacks was the firebombing of the Beth Shalom Synagogue in Tennessee in 1977. Though the building was nearly destroyed, luckily most worshippers had left before the attack. Franklin later confessed that his goal was to inspire other white supremacists to follow his deadly path, but instead, his reign of terror landed him on death row. By September 1980, Franklin had killed at least 22 people. His distinctive tattoos and frequent visits to blood banks helped authorities track him down. Arrested in Florida in October 1980, he faced multiple murder charges. Diagnosed with paranoid schizophrenia, Franklin was still sentenced to death. After years of legal delays, he was executed by lethal injection in 2013. In his final moments, he showed no remorse, stating simply, "I believe I deserve everything that'll happen to me." His chilling legacy remains a stark reminder of the destructive power of hate.
Being locked up in here on death row, with an execution date a week away, I can't really do a whole lot for them.
The Dark Confession of Wesley Allen Dodd, a killer's final words. Discover the chilling story of Wesley Allen Dodd, a child killer who chose execution as his only escape from himself. Wesley Allen Dodd's story is one of horror and tragedy, revealing the depths of human depravity. Born on July 3, 1961 in Toppenish, Washington, Dodd's life was marked by a lack of love and affection. He claimed he was never abused, yet the absence of the words, "I love you" from family and friends left a void that would manifest in horrific ways. At just 9 years old, Dodd recognized his disturbing to boys. By 13, he began acting on these urges, exposing himself and violently touching younger boys, including his cousins. Despite multiple reports to authorities, he evaded punishment, presenting himself as a seemingly normal child.
Molesting kids nonstop since I was 13 years old.
However, beneath this facade lay a dangerous obsession that would lead to unspeakable acts. On September 4, 1989, Dodd lured 2 boys to a park where he tied them to a tree, and ultimately murdered them. This was only the beginning of his reign of terror. In November of the same year, he attempted to kidnap another boy, James Kirk, but was thwarted when James fought back and called for help. Dodd's capture followed shortly after. Confessing to 3 murders, Dodd was charged with aggravated first-degree murder and attempted kidnapping. He pled guilty and was sentenced to death. In a chilling twist, he chose hanging over lethal injection, believing it mirrored the brutality of his crimes. In his final interview, Dodd expressed a haunting acceptance of his fate, stating that death would bring him relief from the torment of his actions. On January 5, 1993, he was executed by hanging, marking a grim chapter in the history of capital punishment in the U.S. Carol Cole's final moments before execution. Watch Carol Cole's chilling last words before execution, a twisted mind haunted by dark fantasies and lifelong pain revealed. Carol Cole's final interview, recorded just minutes before his execution by lethal injection, offers a haunting glimpse into the mind of a serial killer responsible for 35 murders. When asked if he was sorry for his victims, Cole replied quietly, "Yes, especially the 11-year-old girl." Born in 1938 in Sioux City, Iowa, Cole's early life was deeply troubled. His father left to fight in World War II, and his mother's multiple affairs and abusive behavior shattered his childhood. She even dressed him as a girl for school, leading to bullying and humiliation that further damaged his psyche. A traumatic event in his youth, the drowning of a classmate, was ruled accidental, but it marked the start of a dark path. Between 1960 and 1963, Cole spent time in mental hospitals, where doctors uncovered his disturbing belief. He thought he had to kill a woman before engaging in any relationship. Half of his victims were women, and his killings appeared to act out this twisted fantasy. His marriage to an alcoholic stripper deepened his hatred, fueling his violent urges. He deeply regretted the murder of one victim, reflecting on the life she might have had. Cole's killing spree worsened after prison, with 14 women murdered over 9 years. One of the most painful was Marie Cushman, strangled after a night out in Las Vegas. Eventually captured and sentenced to death, Cole accepted his fate calmly, smoking a cigar during his final interview. When asked if he deserved to die, he answered, "Yes, I think I deserve to die." On December 6, 1985, justice was served in Nevada. The chilling case of Billy Wayne Cobble. He killed his estranged wife's family, stayed calm on death row, and dodged all questions in his final interview. Billy Wayne Cobble's chilling story is one of brutal violence and haunting emotional detachment. Prosecutors described him as having a heart full of scorpions after he murdered his estranged wife's parents and brother in a crime that shocked Texas. Despite the severity of his actions, Cobble's behavior remained cold and unsettling. For nearly 30 years, Cobble stayed on death row in Texas, awaiting execution. During that time, he rarely showed any clear remorse or emotional response. In his final interview with journalist Susanna Reid, his chilling calmness was evident. When asked if he regretted his crimes, he answered vaguely, "I regret what happened, but I also regret a lot of things in life." This ambiguous statement left many wondering how deeply he truly felt about the lives he destroyed. When questioned about whether he ever loved his wife, Cobble dodged the question completely. His evasive responses and emotionless tone painted a disturbing picture of a man disconnected from the pain caused by his own actions. Rather than showing sorrow, his demeanor seemed detached and cold, intensifying the horror of the crime. Billy Wayne Cobble's case is not only about a violent tragedy, but also about the complex and chilling psychology of a killer who seemed almost indifferent to his brutal deeds. His long time on death row and his final interview reveal a man whose heart was as cold and venomous as the scorpions prosecutors used to describe him. This story forces us to confront the unsettling reality of what can dwell in the darkest corners of the human mind and what happens when justice finally catches up. The I-95 Killer Chilling Confessions of Gary Ray Bowles. Multiple murders, stolen identities, and shocking justifications experience the eerie, calm, and chilling mindset of the I-95 Killer. Gary Ray Bowles, known as the I-95 Killer, terrorized the East Coast by murdering several gay men along the Interstate 95 corridor. His crimes shocked communities and sparked intense fear, but what makes his story even more disturbing is his chilling mindset. In a taped interview for The Killer Speaks, Bowles displayed a bizarre calmness and even amusement as he recounted how he avoided capture by stealing a man's identity. Bowles described one of his victims dismissively as crazy and creepy, attempting to justify his violent actions by blaming the victims themselves for triggering him. His vague explanation, "Something came on the screen that shocked me," offered little insight into the true motives behind his killings, instead highlighting his disturbing detachment from reality. Perhaps the most unsettling aspect of Bowles' confession was his blatant lack of accountability. He casually admitted to taking a victim's birth certificate and social security card, then walking into the DMV to assume a completely new identity. This ease with which he erased his past underscores the cold, calculated nature of his crimes. Bowles' story is a haunting example of a killer who not only committed horrific murders, but also evaded responsibility with disturbing indifference. His calm, unrepentant tone leaves viewers unsettled and fascinated, exposing the dark mind behind the infamous I-95 killings. Bobby Joe Long. Bobby Joe Long's violent spree began after brain injury. His chilling confession and final victim's bravery ended his reign. Bobby Joe Long terrorized Florida during the 1980s, leaving a trail of fear and devastation in his wake. He was convicted of murdering at least 10 women and assaulting over 50 others, earning a dark place in the state's criminal history. Long spent more than 30 years on death row before his execution in 2019 brought an end to his violent chapter. In a haunting interview, Long revealed that his brutal urges began after a motorcycle crash that caused significant brain injuries. With a cold half smile, he admitted, "I couldn't believe I did it. Most of the time I was normal. Just every now and then." His words gave a glimpse into the twisted mind of a man struggling with violent impulses he could barely control, yet committed with terrifying determination. Long's capture was made possible thanks to his final victim, Lisa McVeigh. After surviving a horrific attack, Lisa showed extraordinary courage by leading police directly to Long. Her bravery not only saved her own life, but also prevented countless future crimes by bringing a dangerous predator to justice. The story of Bobby Joe Long is a chilling reminder of how unpredictable and destructive the human mind can be when influenced by trauma and darkness. His crimes left deep scars on Florida communities, but the courage of survivors like Lisa McVeigh stands as a beacon of hope amid the horror. Long's legacy is a grim chapter marked by violence, but also by resilience and justice. Earl Forrest, deadly rage over a lawnmower. A broken promise, a lawnmower, and 3 lives lost. Earl Forrest's chilling story reveals a shocking lack of remorse. In 2002, what started as a simple dispute over a lawnmower and drugs quickly spiraled into a deadly rampage. Earl Forrest ended up murdering 3 people, including a sheriff's deputy, in a violent spree triggered by feelings of betrayal and anger. The seemingly small argument masked a much deeper, dangerous rage. In a haunting interview featured in The Killer Speaks, Forrest showed no remorse for his crimes. When asked about his motive, he casually said, "I just wanted a lawnmower. She said she'd get me one. I guess I felt lied to." This calm, almost indifferent explanation stands in stark contrast to the horrific violence he committed. It exposes a man who acted out of cold, calculated anger, rather than any real emotional pain or regret. The brutality of Forrest's actions shocked many, especially since the trigger was something so trivial. His story is a grim reminder of how personal grudges and unresolved conflicts, when combined with a volatile temperament, can lead to unimaginable tragedy. In 2016, Earl Forrest was executed, ending a dark chapter marked by violence fueled by betrayal and rage. His unrepentant attitude and calm demeanor during interviews make his case particularly disturbing, serving as a stark warning about the unpredictable and deadly consequences of unchecked anger. Angel Maturino Resendiz, the Railroad Killer. Discover the terrifying story of Angel Resendiz, the calm yet deadly train-hopping killer who saw himself as eternal. Angel Maturino Resendiz earned the terrifying nickname, the Railroad Killer, because of his unique and chilling method of traveling across the United States by hopping freight trains. Unlike other criminals who stick to one area, Resendiz moved freely and unpredictably along the vast railway system, breaking into homes located near train tracks and brutally murdering those inside. His crimes spanned multiple states, leaving investigators struggling to connect the dots and terrified communities wondering when and where he would strike next. In a rare interview with journalist Jacqueline Cacho, Resendiz spoke in Spanish with an unsettling calmness. Instead of confessing or describing his violent actions in detail, he cryptically referred to himself as eternal, claiming he couldn't die. This eerie mindset made him seem almost untouchable, an unstoppable force lurking within society's shadows. His cold demeanor and cryptic words revealed a disturbing detachment from reality and humanity, painting a portrait of a man who saw himself as beyond death. Despite his self-proclaimed immortality, Resendiz's killing spree ended when authorities finally captured him. In 2006, he was executed by lethal injection, closing the chapter on one of America's most chilling serial killers. His story serves as a haunting reminder of how dangerous and unpredictable criminals can be when they exploit the hidden pathways of the country, like the railroad tracks stretching endlessly across the landscape. The railroad killer's legacy continues to shock and fascinate, showing how one man's twisted mind can terrorize countless lives while slipping through society's cracks, moving silently from town to town. Tommy Lynn Sells, the ruthless coast-to-coast killer. Meet Tommy Lynn Sells, the cold killer who claimed 70 murders and described murder as a dangerous addiction. Tommy Lynn Sells was a notorious serial killer who roamed across the United States, earning the chilling nickname the Coast to Coast Killer. He claimed responsibility for over 70 murders, but only one of these was ever proven in a court of law. Despite the uncertainty around the true extent of his crimes, Sells' violent past and erratic behavior left a dark and lasting mark on those who followed his story. In a revealing interview with journalist Martin Bashir, Sells spoke with a disturbing lack of emotion. When asked about love, he coldly admitted, "I don't know what love is, but when you look at me, you'll know what hate is." His words painted a stark picture of a man consumed by hatred and devoid of empathy. Sells described the act of killing as something addictive, comparing it to a drug that gave him an intense rush. His chilling smirk as he said this only underscored the twisted pleasure he took in violence. Sells' life was marked by chaos, violence, and a seemingly endless desire to hurt others. His story is a haunting look into the mind of a killer who viewed murder not as a crime, but as an addictive thrill. Though only one murder was officially tied to him, the fear he inspired stretched far beyond that single case. Tommy Lynn Sells remains one of America's most unsettling and enigmatic serial killers, a grim reminder of how dangerous and unpredictable human darkness can be. Peter Kürten, the Vampire of Dusseldorf. Peter Kürten, the Vampire of Dusseldorf, confessed to killing for pleasure. His obsession with blood was deadly and chilling. In the 1930s, Germany, Peter Kürten earned the terrifying nickname the Vampire of Dusseldorf after a series of brutal murders that shocked the nation. Kürten killed 9 people in and around Dusseldorf, driven by a disturbing obsession with blood. His crimes were not just acts of violence, they were fueled by a dark desire that crossed into the twisted realms of pleasure and relief. During chilling interviews with a psychiatrist, Kürten openly admitted that the sight of blood gave him intense sexual gratification. More than that, he revealed that the act of killing brought him an unusual sense of relief, as if it lifted a heavy burden from his mind. This terrifying confession exposed the dangerous link between his violent urges and deep psychological disturbance. Kürten's story culminated in a macabre final moment. Just before his execution by guillotine, he asked a haunting question: "Will I be able to hear the blood gush from my neck?" This grim curiosity perfectly captured the mind of a killer obsessed with blood to the very end. Peter Kürten's legacy is one of horror and fascination, a glimpse into the dark corners of human nature where obsession and violence collide. His brutal acts left a permanent scar on Dusseldorf's history and serve as a chilling reminder of how some killers are driven not just by hatred, but by a twisted craving for blood itself. Hearing the final words of these killers reminds us of the darkness some people carry within. Whether filled with denial, calm acceptance, or disturbing honesty, their last interviews are as haunting as their crimes. While justice was served, the memories of their victims remain. Thank you for watching. If this video gave you a deeper look into the minds of history's darkest figures, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more true crime stories that uncover the chilling side of humanity.